Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cuppa with a Jesuit. I'm Father Robin Koning, the Vocations Director for the Australian Jesuits.
With Father Rowan, I'm Julian Butler, a Jesuit in formation, and we're joined today by Father Gerry Healy. Father Gerry, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Father Gerry, this is your 60th year as a Jesuit. I understand you're celebrating that milestone in a couple of months. Would you share with us some reflection on what it means to you to have been a Jesuit for 60 years?
Will do. So 60 years a Jesuit comes up in a month or two. I just like to say I've found that 60 years very fulfilling. I guess it's given me an opportunity for my passions. First of all, as a priest and teacher, to be able to help other people. And secondly, because of my involvement with science, which I guess is my other passion. I've been able to help people, I think, as a priest in spiritual and sacramental ways. I've tried as a teacher to make my classes interesting. I've spent about 25 years in secondary teaching and 25 years teaching at the University of Melbourne. So that work as a priest. Similarly, my work as a scientist. I've worked in physics and environmental science over the years, taught in schools, taught at university. At university, particularly in physics and environmental studies, to people who are going to be teachers in the future. And I've really enjoyed that. I've worked on environmental science and others also in the curriculum. I developed or helped develop with a team the environmental science course in Victoria, the year 12 course, and I ran that for almost 20 years, for 18 years probably, and I found that very fulfilling. And I've taught that also to teachers, upcoming teachers at university.
Yeah, it's an interesting combination, that being a priest and a scientist. I suppose it's not, we're quite familiar with it as Jesuits, but there's still quite a few people around who see science and faith as inevitably in conflict. Do you have, what would you say about that sort of?
Yes, I do. I think it's an area that I'm very interested in, that relationship between faith or religion and science. It's an area I've written a bit on. More importantly, I do a lot of work in schools at the moment, in our companion schools, and I spend a lot of time talking to classes. In some of the schools I go round, introduce myself, ask any questions you want to discuss. I guess I've probably done something over 1,000 classroom visits in the last 15 or 20 years in the schools. The biggest question I ever get asked is that question about faith and science. Last Friday, I was at Loyola College, Watsonia, and a year 8 student asked me about that very question. And I try and go through the proper roles of faith and the proper roles of science and show that it's only when they exceed their proper area and their proper methodology that we get the clash. And that's happened on both sides, where people have tried to use a scientific method to answer a faith question, or a faith or biblical question to answer a science question. I also point out that Jesuits have been involved over the years very heavily in science. Ignatius had a great emphasis on a positive attitude to creation and to the world. A lot of the early Jesuits were involved in science. In fact, a curious trivial point is that there are 12 craters on the moon called after Jesuit scientists.
Father Gerry, was that interest in science something that was always with you before you joined the Jesuits, or something that developed as you undertook Jesuit studies? Where did it start for you?
I did science at school, and I certainly enjoyed it. The person who convinced me or inspired me, I think is a better word, to join the Society of Jesus, to join the Jesuits, taught me both physics and chemistry at year 12. or what was then Form 6. And so I definitely had an interest in it. When I did my university studies as a Jesuit, and obviously was guided into science with the possibility of teaching it. I did science at Australian National University, and then a small amount of research in science after that. My particular area of interest that I was working with people on was high Mach number fluid flows. Now, since that means nothing to most people, I simply describe it as why spacecraft keep crashing and how we avoid it. That was a major interest of Australian National University where I was at the time.
Some would say very practical for Jesuit studies, Gerry.
Oh, yes, yes. Someday some Jesuit may go into space. As you would know, they've made a bit of a point of the Jesuits early in the time who went on Antarctic explorations. You may have read some of that. I'm sure the next step will be to go into space.
Would you tell us, Gerry, from that interest in science, was it always clear to you that being an educator was something that you're interested in schools and universities, or did that develop later?
No, I think I was always interested in that. When I started teaching, and then when I was principal of a school myself, I had a resolution that when you're a student in school, there are some classes you look forward to and some classes which you are very anxious about and not looking forward to. I really had a resolution that my classes, both at school and university, were going to be looked forward to, that people were going to enjoy them. So yes, I did have that role as an educator. I've obviously worked in teacher training for 20-something years. And also I worked extensively with schools in Asia, and trying to, particularly with schools in Asia that had a Christian ethos, not Jesuit schools, but ones that had some sort of Christian ethos. I did reviews of those over about 15 years, and I tried to get that same point across, the centrality of the classroom and of positive teaching and learning experiences.
Gerry, you mentioned some, or a Jesuit, I think you mentioned, who influenced you in becoming a Jesuit. Could you say a bit about your vocation journey?
Yes, certainly. When I was a child, I was an only child, and don't hold it against me and be sympathetic to me. But my dad got very sick when I was 6. What would today be something like Alzheimer's, except it was a virus. He always thought I was 6. There was a Jesuit priest at St. Pat's where I went, who taught me, who took a particular interest in me, who was important to me, who supported me. And I think I felt one of the reasons for becoming a Jesuit and a priest was or Jesuit particularly, I was inspired by him. He'd given me a lot. I wanted to give that back somehow to others, particularly perhaps as an educator and priest. I hope over the years I have been able to do that. I think the Holy Spirit and the Lord have been very helpful to me. I think they have worked through me to support people in a way that I don't deserve. I think I have been able to help people, and I think it's because the Lord has, in his generosity, worked through me in ways that I didn't really deserve.
Gerry, I wonder if, talking about those pillars of your Jesuit life as priest, scientist, educator, yes, I wonder if those second and third things, scientist and educator, have affected the way you've understood yourself as priest and ministered as a priest. Do you see that in the way that you've lived that vocation?
I think the main one would be in trying to support people in that faith science area. I guess if the thing did, if that science emphasis did drive me, it would be to try and show that a priest and a religious can be in science, to try and overcome that faith science barrier. As I said, the biggest thing I ever hear from students when I talk to them is that clash. And I think when I go to university, when I taught at university, I always introduce myself in the first lecture or workshop of the year as a Jesuit priest. And people were surprised at what are you doing in science? And that's understandable, I suppose. There has been that clash or alleged clash. One student said to me once, I presume you have a sort of switch, do you? On Sunday night, you switch off the priest thing and switch the science on. And then on Saturday, sometime you switch the science off and switch the priest on. That's understandable with people who come who at university that I taught. I find it disappointing when I find that belief in a clash of faith and science in Catholic schools. I think we perhaps haven't addressed that enough. What was that question? Oh, yes. Has it affected my priestly thing? Yes, I think I've tried to be seen as a priest who's working in science. Yep. And you mentioned pillars there. I think the other thing I would mention, and as I come up to 60 years a Jesuit, how supportive I've felt in community. I've had certainly many Jesuits, some more than others, obviously, who I've been quite close to, who I've felt very supportive, have been very supportive of me. I think I've been lucky in finding that support in community life. It supported my ministry and supported me personally and supported me spiritually. I think one of the strengths of 60 years as a Jesuit has been the value that community life has brought to me.
And Gerry, if you were speaking to a young man today who was considering Jesuit life, what sort of things might you say to him?
I would say I've spent 60 years as a Jesuit. I've found it very, very fulfilling. It's given me the opportunity to support my passions as a priest, support my faith, my relationship with Jesus and with God, and with my science. I'd say being a Jesuit has brought that opportunity to fulfill the desires of my heart, if I can put it that way, my relationship with Jesus and with the Lord, and my work as an educator and scientist. I've found that very fulfilling over 60 years. I would encourage anybody who is thinking of it to reflect on the fact that so many Jesuits have found their life fulfilling.
That's great, Gerry. Thank you for your time this afternoon and for those encouraging words and for talking to us this afternoon. God bless you.
Thanks, Gerry.
God bless. I'll drink to that.